Yeah, and I'm also curious to see what the sales are going to be in 6 months on the watch device. There's an awful lot of us that were happy to give up a watch because we had a phone. It had the time on it. I'm happy. It's going to be interesting to see what is the adoption rate for all of these different watches, not just the Apple Watch, but the various Android versions.
And then the next thing will be, and maybe they'll announce this in June, but the service port on the watch is still there. So I'm curious how that may turn into. They have Apple has a patent for a band that has a battery plug in, so the band actually has more battery, which I think is going to be fun for the guys doing the Kickstarter right now for a band that does that very thing. But then there's also the idea of, could that port be something serviceable for not just fixing the watch, but also the medical industry, where it becomes a port,
Augmented reality type situations where it's still the phone that's doing the majority of the processing, but that can be passed through the watch, and the line can be then run up your arm, and you can wear the augmented reality glasses.
And obviously, got a real big focus on health too. So that's
that's going to be the killer app, not to. I guess it's a weird sort of combination of things. The health aspects of things is going to be the killer app. But yeah, that's going to be the thing that really drives it, because yes, I can get. I like getting the haptic feedback. That hey, I have a text message or something, because there are times when you get a text message on your phone, you're in a noisy environment, you miss it. And this is, again, such a personal device that you have it on your wrist all the time, and you feel it. That is a nice driver. But I think, when we get to the aspects of biometrics and being able to turn that into something that's actionable for the medical community, then that'll be the driver for all these devices, not just the Apple Watch.
Right.
So, all right.
And I can see a huge demand for that. When we get Fitbit and all these various health devices combined into the watch, that's going to be very valuable.
Well, I'll tell you what I want, and I'm totally serious about this. It's going to sound kind of a smart aleck, but like HomeKit. I want to I want things I don't know. Like when we're going to move into a new house. One of the very first things that I want to do is there's a doorbell that has a webcam on it. And I want to install that, and then anyone, whenever somebody comes to your door, everyone in your family can get a notification, and they get to see who's at the door, and they can actually talk to the person from their device. So I think that would be cool to have on the watch as well.
You've been watching the Jetsons again.
I have.
Way too Dick Tracy, my friend. Way too Dick Tracy.
Yeah, but I just think that kind of stuff is what's going to make it functional.
I'll be curious to see what the hardware refresh cycle is on it. Because already, Apple is sort of counting on people to buy a new phone every 1 to 2 years. I was just talking to somebody today about how, the iPad. I'm thinking a year or two ago when they released 2 iPads within 6 months of one another. They're getting really aggressive about the hardware refresh cycles on these. And this is an expensive accessory, and again, it is an accessory. It doesn't, it's not a standalone product. So I'll be curious to see whether they try to squeeze a few more months or an extra year out of this before, forcing people to upgrade for the latest and greatest.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I think they'll probably get a little bit of forgiveness on the first generation, right? Just to. Like for myself, I'm like, okay, I'm expecting it not to be the end-all be-all on day one, and there'll probably be an upgrade that I'll want to purchase at some point. But yeah, you're right. I mean, unless there is overwhelming value, I don't see the average person upgrading their watch, for a $500 price tag or whatever every 18 months. I don't know. I don't know why they would. But it's
why
yet to
do
be
you
seen.
upgrade phones? Because they get bigger screen. For watches, you won't be able to have bigger screen. It just would be around probably, or high resolution, or maybe a more stylish look. But it won't be too much necessary. As for developer, I think it's gonna be like the story with iPads, because we have lots of iPads, and the first iPad is no-go for developer, but the second one, iPad 2, which is very old one, but still holds up pretty good for all the needs you
Still
need
selling?
as a developer. What?
I mean, Apple is still selling them in their stores. You can buy
Yeah.
an iPad 2.
And I think next Apple Watch second version will be much better and will hold for quite a long time.
Yeah, that's a good point, though, Sergey, because I know one of the driving factors for me to upgrade was the size of the screen in this last iteration, but I skipped with the 5S, from 5 to 5S. I was like, there was a little bit of a performance bump in terms of processor probably, or maybe internet speed or whatever, but that wasn't enough to make me move. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, because I bought the 128 gig device, so I can see the battery being consumable within the next 2 years, 18 months or whatever. And unless they come out with something really compelling, I'm not sure why I would upgrade to another phone. So we may be hitting a cycle where people will get to that point where they're, even their phones are kind of like, well, no, this is good enough. There's going to have to be an overwhelming reason why they would spend that money.
I would buy the new iPad that is the high screen, high dimension, like 12-inch or 13-inch, something like that.
The so-called iPad Pro.
Yeah. I like bigger screen iPad.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious. Personally, I'm curious to see if they come out with a stylus. I want to see if they can pull that off, and I would think that, I don't know all the details as to how the capacitive touch works, but I would think that they might tie that to some new hardware. Right? Here's a stylus. For all those artists out there, all those people who like to work with directly on a tablet, here's a stylus, but oh, by the way, it needs this new A9 chip or whatever, and then that would be a reason why you would have to upgrade. So, not saying that they were trying to manipulate people, but just there's maybe hardware requirements that pushes.
There are pretty good styluses for current iPads as well, but bigger screen will make a huge difference.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I've got the 13-inch MacBook Air, and from what I've read, the dimensions are probably along those lines. So there's times when when I'm reading those articles, I'll just turn my MacBook like upside down and look at the screen, and I'm like, yeah, that'd be I could work on that surface. That would be good. Mm-hmm. So anyway. All right, guys. Well, we're kind of over time a little bit today, so I think we need to go ahead and wrap it up. But hopefully Google Hangouts will be back to normal next week, and we'll have our full-on live hangout like we normally do. But anyway, so next Monday we're going to talk about matching logic. So be sure to join us for that. And then we're also going to look at packaging things up and putting everything into the framework so that we have a completed app. So if you haven't already, definitely go back and watch the initial hangout where we talked about creating cards, flipping cards, doing all that kind of stuff. And then if you need to, go ahead and download the code and step through it and follow along with us and make it your own. All right? Until then, till next Monday, have a great week and happy coding.